I was very good at putting my emotions somewhere else or distract. In order to get the job done, emotions would be in my way, or that's how I would have perceived them. I wouldn't want to have anything to do with them. That's an emotion. Okay, let's focus on something else. Anytime a feeling would come, I would distract myself. I would do something else. I would think about something else. And during the course of it, it fundamentally got me actually simply to feel my feelings.
So many high achievers run on autopilot, pushing through that crazy stress and thinking that if they actually slow down or connect with any type of calm, they'll somehow lose their edge. Jonathan is actually living proof that the exact opposite is true. Letting yourself step out of hypervigilance does not mean you lose your drive. It actually means you get clarity and your performance back. So let's dive in.
Leadership Sound Bites. Real leaders, real moments, real growth.
Welcome to this week's episode of Leadership Soundbites with my very special guest, Jonathan McGuinness. And Jonathan, I'm going to read Program Manager of Massive Change, primarily on tech outlook. That's where your passion is and where you have expertise. The reason, not only, I would jump in and have a conversation with you any day of the week. The reason that I specifically wanted to get back in the room with you was the pretty dramatic shift in change that you went through and that you started openly sharing with people about, because it was enough so that it gave me encouragement and hope for other people that are your type. Personality type, persona, whatever it may be, that yes, it's possible. Because I think the other part of it is when you said the word regulated, right? So you're competent and you're regulated and managing through stuff. I think a lot of times, Jonathan, people who are high achievers, high performers in the stuff have this background fear that if they do regulate or start to connect with calm meditation awareness, they lose their edge.
100%. 100%.
So I'm excited to dive into this. And I forgot to ask, do you have a quote to start us off with?
A quote to start off. Give me a second. Your
Okay.
people don't follow your plan. They follow your state. If you regulate yourself first, everything else is downstream.
People don't follow your plan, they follow your state.
So if you're in a great state, if you're more regulated or in a more confidence, more calmness, they follow, and that's the leader in the room. It doesn't matter whether you have
Hmm.
the title or not. They follow the person who's confident. They might be quieter. It doesn't have to be the loudest person.
Hmm.
Doesn't even have to be always the most competent person in the room. There could be cleverer people than the person who stays in that state. And that's what we follow. We feel the energy in a room of who's most centered, whether we know it or not, subconsciously or consciously. So I think people more follow, that's who the leader is, and they follow that more than whatever the official plan is. Now, if they align, perfect. If they don't,
Hmm.
we got a mess on our hands.
And it's interesting when you said follow, because there's two different meanings that came to mind for me. One of them was follow as in a leader is someone who has followers, right? That people naturally migrate toward. The other is the follow the energy and the state. So it's like if you're in that space and you're projecting chaos and freak out and worry and five alarm fire, you will, depending on who you are, um, impact and influence, if you will, that energy and what's happening. And the same thing will happen if there is calm and serene, and people will gravitate toward you. Is like there's a certainty and a knowing that we're going to be okay, and this isn't the last thing to where we need to freak out about.
Oh, absolutely. And two things come to mind when you say that, Michelle, is one is when I learned about resonance. And resonance, I remember somebody doing a little experiment with me. They had two guitars. And on one guitar, they pluck the third string. And on the second guitar, the third string starts vibrating. So whatever vibration or energy or state we have, people resonate with that as much as they're capable of. If they're close enough, they completely, that's almost like falling in love type thing. That's what the
Mm.
ultimate resonance is. Or, and ideally, when we say who's in the lead and who's follow, I'm not even a fan of that. I say who's resonating together, like a really good team. I remember one of the best teams I had. We started off as 53, we ended up as six. But this, even officially, I had the title of leader, but any one of the six of us in any one moment, depending on the topic or who was in place, was the leader. So there was a resonance between the group that was actually even far more important than me, who maybe had the title on. And
Yeah.
happily, I wouldn't even say delegated, just passed the mantle or baton to whoever was the right person in that moment for that particular topic, you know?
Yeah. The word defer came to mind for me because you just kind of nod and tap and people step in and it's just this flow that happens. So it's not like everyone's gonna, question gets asked and people look to the person with the title. That can be if the person with the title has set that expectation repeatedly with consequences if that's not how it happens. But to your point, when it's the other way, it's this beautiful dance among people to where there's not this single authority as the title. You've got the final decision on things if there is that to be made and the ultimate accountability. But it doesn't mean that you're the doer of the stuff or the creator, the decider of the thing, because when you pull together really competent humans, gosh, you just leapfrog off each other.
Yeah, for the most part, you end up being a good facilitator rather than a leader per se,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
It's not follow me. And so that leader follower, I think even by using those words,
Hmm.
we're kind of almost categorizing ourselves like a caste system. You're in the leader, you're in the follower, and that makes someone better than or more than someone else. I'm not even a
Yeah.
fan of the words
Yeah.
because we're in a room together, we're maybe brainstorming on a topic, and anything that you say or I say can be fantastic, stupid, doesn't matter, but it can lead us to the answers that we're looking to help us on the problem we're trying to solve in that moment.
What term comes to mind for you, Jonathan, if it's not because I agree with you when I actually think about the word follower. Um, it's almost like the gatherer of people around a certain thing. It's like, um, is there another term or way to describe?
I
Um,
describe it in another way, Michelle, and it was a
yeah.
distinction probably 20 years ago. I remember having a real problem saying like literally a resistance. I work for somebody or someone works for
Oh,
me. I would always say with,
yeah.
independent where they are in the hierarchy or in the group, etc. Because all of those representations of separation, I call them,
Hmm.
put layers of walls and barriers between us. So just changing our words, it doesn't have to be leader follower. It could just swap out your for a with, and that already changes the feeling. And if somebody hears the boss say, "Oh, Michelle works with me," it
Hmm.
feel different about me than if I say Michelle works for me. It's a
Hmm.
completely, and
Oh,
that
yeah.
already changes the platform on which all of the other communication sits.
Yeah. It's interesting because the thing that contributes to that whole hierarchy view that people may have, because even in present day, leaders that I'm in the room with that are newer leaders or leaders that have been around a while, they have this whole idea that they're over people. And a lot of it has to do too with the visual representation of an org chart
Yeah.
is depicted that way. Because if you were to lay it out that way and collapse it so that you just have black lines or blurbs of blobs of whatever. But my brain went to how else could you represent it? And so you could almost represent it like a spider graph or like a mind map kind of layout, right? So that the org chart didn't reinforce this very archaic view of teams of this, right? It's almost like this.
So
Just interesting.
I got really lucky. My very first job out of college, I had a job for 1 year, believe it or not. That was the only 1 year I had it. I was hired by a Norwegian man who came to Ireland to set up a telecoms company using Ireland, which was actually a cheaper source of labor fundamentally. But he hired me to be part of a consulting group, and we all went off fantastically to Norway for 1 week of whitewater raftings, going through the fjords, kind of
Wow.
team building, all
Yeah.
sorts of races, everything. And when we came back, he actually said, I'll even name him, Arne Jonasson. I'm not sure if he's still around, but he was a
Yeah.
fantastic guy. And he said, he gave us all a talk. We were only 18 people to start with. And he said, the normal organization looks like this. I don't know if you can see, I have a kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
triangle where I'm at the
Yeah. The
boss,
triangle.
I'm at the
Yeah.
top, and you guys are somewhere in that pyramid. The way I look at it is, he said, look at it this way.
Yeah.
And I am here. I hired you because you guys are experts or really good at what you do. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
here to support all of you do that. And he
Mm-hmm.
actually lived it, Michelle. I had
Mm-hmm.
that 1 year with Arna, and he was my first impression of the big boss, the CEO. And I've done that ever since as a principal. That's how I work. I'm there to support the people
Yeah.
because I'm not
Yeah.
doing the job. I'm facilitating maybe resources, time,
Yeah.
whatever, but they're the ones doing it. So what do you need? And sometimes it's even outside of work. You need something in order to get your work done. It doesn't matter. What do you need to get our objective achieved? So
Yeah.
so in a way, I got blessed by Arna saying that to me. That was in the
Hugely.
1990s sometime, and
Hugely.
that's how I've seen it always.
It's interesting because I did process improvement, lean management system at Sutter Health, and you brought that back to me in a minute, and I'm like, why don't we represent that more? But that was that inverted triangle on leadership to represent support of leaders to the rest of the org, because the people that are they're typically engaging with your customers and the front are the frontline people. So they're the ones, they're doing the day-to-day stuff that, without them, you wouldn't, most people don't have a business, right? On frontline. Um, but it would be interesting to start in corporate world representing org charts in that way more because we did it within the lean management system, but it would be cool, and I'd forgotten about that to do it outside of. So yeah, you were very lucky.
Really, that was
Had
it.
that.
You
Yeah.
become the product of the people you meet or that
You are.
influence you.
Yeah. So can we go back and talk about you wrote, and I know you wrote a second article, blog post. What do you call them? Are they articles, blog posts?
Articles, blog posts,
Okay.
Substack.
Okay.
Substack is where I do most of my
Okay.
sort of
Okay.
offline thinking.
So there's a post in Substack that you did in the offline thingy, but that you've written a second one. But the first one is the one that caught my attention that I'm like, something's changed. And
Yeah.
so I would love for you to just share a little bit about that journey and what it is and
Sure.
what is different for you. Um,
Yeah, I would
yeah.
say probably about last year, I was with loads of people of my age who've all been in, I would say, jobs that lead to an awful lot of responsibility and an awful lot of stress in general. Even many of my peers might be divorced or have had breakdowns or whatever, because they take on a lot during the course of their career. And in conversation, just casual with one or two of them, one of them said to me, Jonathan, I have ADHD, and if I do, I think you do. And then I thought, yeah, you're just messing with me. But it kind of stuck in the back of my head. And like, I have never had a diagnosis or whatever, but the idea, because he was a friend just being honest with me, there was no thing. And I started talking to people, and then I start getting, I'm always curious. Then, okay, well, what is it? And fundamentally, what's going on in that area that would even make someone think that? Unfortunately, I met another guy, and I kind of almost coached him just socially and brought him into a good space, and he was going through therapy and a series of things himself. And he said he wanted to share a book with me. And I can tell you the name of the book. It's called The
Yeah.
Presence Process by Michael Brown from South Africa.
Okay.
And this was fundamentally a 10-week course that brings you to the point of becoming present. Now, what does that mean? And then, that's the people. I could never meditate. I could never do any of that. So ask me to do the stretching in the yoga class, whatever you want, could do all that because it was movement, it was active. Breathe, no, don't think, couldn't do that either. Not, that sort of. But one thing I realized going through the course is it's actually a lie that it's a book. It's a 10-week course. Um, I was very good at putting my emotions somewhere else or distract. In order to get the job done, emotions would be in my way, or that's how I would have perceived them. I wouldn't want to have anything to do with them. That's an emotion. Okay, let's focus on something else.
Mm.
Or like I would even call it toxic positivity. You know what I mean? To some degree, is not feel my feelings. And I even struggle to say that word toxic because it gets banged around or whatever. But anytime a feeling would come, I would distract myself, I would do something else, I would think about something else. And during the course of it, it fundamentally got me actually simply to feel my feelings. And
Mm.
which was most of them were uncomfortable in the beginning. And I got so uncomfortable that I didn't even like to have conversations with emotional people. I thought, oh my God, no, I have an emotional person on the project. Get them off the project because they're just going to take up space. That's what I would have done. No, 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 absolutely no problem. And part of it was me then being okay enough to actually say, I will sit with this discomfort. But I got afraid. I thought, am I going to become a black hole now? And it's just going to be
Mhm.
emotion and it'll never stop. I'll be like Sagittarius A asterisk and just for the rest of my life, I could, and that's why I couldn't tolerate very emotional people. I considered them dramatic or whatever. And there are some who are, but that's not the
Mhm.
point. I just, it was I've gone around the world. I've worked around the world, but actually, I didn't maybe go into my emotion. It felt like going to a new country, a new planet, really.
Mhm.
And actually sitting there, um, and instead of trying to fix things, and I think that's also a very male thing as well. I mean, just a general man fix things, and women
Yeah.
are more comfortable actually talking about emotions and even just talking about it. So it was like sitting there and feeling anger, grief, whatever it was, but not doing anything with it, just breathing beside it was a kind of a, so that's the essence of it. Like there's a lot more to it, but that was a completely new planet for me. And what I didn't realize that over time, accepting that has allowed when people get dramatic or whatever, for me to be able to sit with them or sit with myself. And then I'm not reacting as much. So whether that
Mhm.
reacting is not doing something, distracting myself, or maybe going for a shiny object as an excuse to get away from it or whatever else, I've noticed because now it's about 6 months, and I think this is where it came in. My nervous system is just so much more relaxed. I am literally more and more relaxed. And I'd love to know even how to measure that. I know we have a parasympathetic system. I know vagus nerve is probably relaxing. And what I have in common with a lot of people, maybe in their 40s, 50s, or 60s, who've been doing this for a long time, is an accumulated, aggregated chronic stress of just doing the type of career that we were doing. And also, I wouldn't say maybe denying it, but unaware that they actually have this chronic stress. And I'm not a fan of labels. You know me a while now, Michelle, at this age. So whether it's ADHD or whatever, I would say my nervous system was, and still like it's getting better, hyper vigilant. I would put it
Mhm.
that way, or vibrating too fast. And that
Mhm.
vibration or the hypervigilance is coming down. And I would imagine anyone who starts to go through this process, whether they have a label on them or not, would see a lot of the symptoms that they might have been suffering from diminish, get
Mhm.
less, maybe even completely disappear. And like, I'm not a doctor, and we had a doctor on the last conversation, and
Yeah.
I'll put it his direction, but it would definitely have a positive effect on your nervous system, and therefore how you interact. And that's why I know you deal with a lot of leaders. I realized that as stressed as I was often the calmest person in the room, no matter what was happening. I sail as well, and I kind of like to be, I think of myself as a skipper, as in I have a good long keel down into the water. So even if the winds are coming, the keel is long enough and heavy enough that the boat isn't going to
Not
capsize.
gonna tip over. Yeah.
And that was kind of and that's why I have this word up on the screen now, allostasis. I only learned it a few days ago, Michelle, but I thought I'd put it up there for the call. Is
Thank
um,
you.
allostasis is the ability to stay steady when there's a lot of change happening.
Hmm.
And and you can only do that to some degree if you regulate yourself. And it doesn't mean you need to be always calm, because you can't always be calm. Events happen, whatever. But when an emergency is over, that you can come back and regulate yourself back to that reasonable place. And that's what I mean by regulate.
Hmm. It's interesting because you and I chatted before we hit record. And this this idea, and because people get in the hamster wheel loop or whatever it is, um, they don't realize that a different state of being is even possible for all the other stuff going on in their world. For you, and that was one of the things at the front end of it, is for you, it's like emotion, no, emotion, no, emotion, no. That is a distractor. We're not going to get the work done, all the stuff. And for you, you were in this loop of, and I'm going to call it avoidance, okay? Because
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
anything associated with anything that was an emotion that didn't serve the immediate purpose, because you still kept emotions, but it was the emotions that weren't desired, right? In that moment to be able to move the project forward, the work forward, the team forward. That's the stuff that it's like, get it out of the room. It's almost
Totally.
like this disturbing person that you have to call security, right? Only it can be in yourself, where you're just going to pack it down, or it can be with others. Other leaders will be at this heightened state all the time of high alert, signaling fight or flight, chronic stress, whatever you want to call it, which totally exhausts the body because it's constantly on high alert scanning for everything. And there isn't a moment to relax, which is why, to your point, it's like meditation, no. Sit with my thoughts, no. It's because you can't do that. Hypervigilance is a result of there's always a hungry tiger. So you're
Yep.
always scanning for the hungry tiger that doesn't exist. And so you're not going to be able to sit in calm because our life is in danger. At any moment, it could show up. And this is what people are living with all the time. And the higher up you go in an org that you're doing this projects and you think this is normal, or that you're not going to be able to do your job if you're experiencing life any other way. It's
Sure.
like, I have no choice. This is my work. So the question I have, because to your point, you're 6 months in, how is your work performance? What have you noticed about the work environment and the different human that you are state-wise in managing things with work? Are you off your game? Are you not as sharp as what
No,
you were? You're probably sharper, is my guess.
totally. I noticed that even people that, I would have been having conversations with this year, last year, etc. I personally don't have the need to interrupt as much or to talk as much. I'm letting them talk more. They are where I was. And that's allowing me to listen effectively, much more than I did before, in a very simple answer. And therefore, not only can they find the solutions more, which gives them ownership of whatever the solutions are, more than what I would have taken ownership, control, direction, etc. So that means the team actually own more their own ideas because I'm giving them the space to do that.
Mm.
And you said one thing that really clicked with me is, and if the short-term emotion didn't serve, I wouldn't want it and I would push it away. And what I'm realizing is the long-term emotional health. If you look at those short-term emotions as having an effect on your North Star to your health of your emotion for your longer life, you would give space and time for them, but you would be looking at them with a long-term scope in your mind rather than, we have to get this out by 6 o'clock today, don't have time for it. But then that just builds up I would say, a debt of stress, of whatever that is. And long term, you're carrying that debt. People will talk about carrying financial debt, they'll talk about carrying technical debt, but fundamentally you're carrying nervous system or emotional debt along with you all the time. So over time, you're actually degrading your performance or you just even your being by continuing that strategy. So it's not an effective strategy long term.
Mm-mm. But it's the transition, the change, the transformation, letting that stuff in is scary for people. I mean, I've
That's
been in
scary for me.
it is. I've been in the room with leaders that were in a coaching session and they're like, I don't want to talk about this. It's not work, it's personal. I'm like, it's your call and you're the same human. Again, it's your call. The thing I will say to you, in case you're wondering, is when you start to talk about it, you're not going to lose control.
So I'm going to say one thing, Michele, is at least for the way I've been doing it, talking isn't really necessary because once we're into talking, we're in the mental realm. We're not even feeling when we're talking. We're abstracting our concepts around our feeling as much as we believe and even some therapists thinks it's pure rumination when you do therapy. It's not actually, but literally where in my body is it? At the top of my chest? Is it in my lower stomach, or where do I feel it? And I don't necessarily, and I haven't talked to a therapist and I don't have any intention, because the genuine thing is, am I allowing myself to feel my feelings in my body? So
Mm-hmm.
I get it. And I know at the moment we're talking about it, but we're actually in the mental construct right now as we do that. But to be really practical about it is, if I feel like, even just now, I'm going to stop you and maybe, you know, turn the steering wheel a little bit on the conversation. I feel, oh, in the back of my head has a little thing is, oh, I don't want to offend Michele. I hope I don't upset her. What will I say? How provocative will I be? The
Mm-hmm.
little head will do that all the time, and it's coming up with all these ideas. But at the same time, I can maybe feel in my chest is I'm a little bit uncomfortable saying this. This could also be public. You're putting it on a podcast or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But just recognizing, okay, in my chest, I'm feeling something and being okay with feeling it, no matter what the words are that come out. So I know we're having the conversation, and that's a really helpful way to get there. But in order to actually be it or do the work, words aren't really that necessary, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I'm smiling because there is a learning journey to get to the point that you're talking about, right? So a lot of it's like in coaching, because I don't do therapy, even though it can feel that way for some humans, is that the whole idea, because people aren't in touch with this stuff. So for instance, you're talking about, I feel it in my chest. I'm aware of the narratives that I've got going, all the little dialogue in the back of my head. My gut is you didn't have awareness of any of that stuff before this journey that you
A
started
lot
on.
less. A lot, like
Um, yeah,
maybe even none of it. You might be right. I might even be
yes,
afraid to admit that,
yeah. So, and that's where most people are, Jonathan, right? So a lot of it has to do with when we're in a coaching session is to understand the context around this thing that's driving whatever's going on, for them to be able to say, okay, we don't need to hash all the stuff, but it is that point of the awareness of where in your body are you feeling it? What dialogue, narrative stories do you have going in that moment so that they can reframe them, change them, right? Be
Sure.
aware of them. Realize that, oh, I've got this thing that I keep saying to myself that is a lie. It's not even true.
Well,
But
I
a lot
think
of
even
times,
this conversation we're having, Michelle, and talking about it, somebody go, oh, that kind of makes sense. Just even talking to someone is about how do you feel, which is a question people often ask, but they rarely answer it about their feeling. They talk about a load of other stuff, but how do you feel right now in your body? And like one of the big things of it as well, I have to say, it's not just where, is it quite often because we're talking so much, we stop breathing.
hmm
So we the rhythm of it. We're one of the few animals that stop breathing a lot of times during the day because once we go into our head, we forget about our body. So I just regularly during the day have to go down into my belly and go, oh yeah, I mightn't have done that in 20 minutes since we started the conversation even maybe because
yeah.
I'm in my head and that stops and that's what allows a lot of things to get stuck because we actually stop breathing.
And see, I never really thought about the stop breathing part. I know the shallow breathing when we're stressed and that sort of thing, but I hadn't thought about that. And it does make sense. And I think what you're talking about too is the intention to start noticing different things, right? Because a lot of times we're in our body, we're doing whatever we're doing, only we're really not present with what's happening. It's
Absolutely.
happening. We're going through motions, we're doing whatever we're doing, but we're not really present and aware of all those things. And we can get hijacked pretty easily because we're not sitting in awareness and presence.
Oh, for sure. And that's what it's all about. That's the name of the book is the presence
Yeah,
process. And you
yeah.
become aware of those dialogues, aware of those feelings, aware of whether you're breathing or not. Like I only learned something last week is there's only three organs that don't use the diaphragm. So I think your heart, your liver, and maybe your spleen. But your breathing, all of your other organs are actually getting to move by your diaphragm going up and down. So they're
Hmm.
not getting movement. So the circulation of blood, of oxygen, of all those things in your digestive system and everything else is not happening. So it's actually even not good for your health to stop breathing.
I
Like it's a
love
very
that.
physical thing, you know?
Yeah, I love it. Um, Thank you for sharing. I will put a link to the Substack post that you did, the article
Sure.
stuff. I It's important, I think, for humans to realize that number one, we have um the ability to change how we're experiencing this life that we're in. And we're not going to lose our edge, if you will, or our capacity to perform and produce and all that stuff, because at some level people are
If it
telling
even
ourselves that
improve it,
story.
Michelle.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm not surprised. I would venture to guess that you're sharper, present, more aware, all the stuff. And it's a cool thing. What do you want to leave people with, Jonathan? What are some thoughts about all the stuff that we chatted with about?
I'm going to give a couple of funny ones. One is during the course of all this thinking, I realized that our that why do some people become more intelligent than others? Now, this is a bit of a funny one. Where does the word, okay, let me start. I've started to get to know Gaelic, which is Irish language. And as I was learning the words for artificial intelligence, so
Okay.
I said, okay, well, the Irish version, there's an old Irish version, and then there's an imported one from Latin. And then where did the word intelligence comes from? It comes from inter, in between, legere, which is to read. So in my mind, what do nervous people or people who are afraid do? We read in between the lines because we're looking at for clues of things that
Mm,
might hurt us. So we're trying, our brain is continuously trying to predict and protect us. So why would you become very intelligent? Because you were regularly in unsafe environments. So
mm,
where you felt uncertain or unsafe. And I'm like, shit, that, how unsafe or did I feel in order to, be so hyper vigilant? So
mm-hmm,
it's not necessarily intelligence per se, it's actually just a nervous system reaction to being in an unsafe space.
mm-hmm.
And it kind of gave me I'm not sure. I almost have empathy for people who are intelligent now rather than admiration for them. It's changed my perspective on it, even towards myself, thinking, it's a bit of an ego thing, or you can figure things out quickly or whatever else. And now I kind of go, well, no, that just means I felt unsafe a lot. And it's a
Mm-hmm.
maladaptation to your environment. So it's one worth thinking about.
Yeah, yeah. No,
A-
I agree.
and then I, I'm starting to like to share this, Michelle, and I'm doing it with more and more people. I am going to set up well, I've actually set it up, but I'll share the stories here on allostasis.ie for Ireland as well. Um,
Okay.
and and I want to share the stories there because I think even this conversation, if someone hears it, maybe they haven't heard that idea before. And it's just one conversation we are away from that little bit of awareness that opens the door or the window that maybe is a better life. So I'd like to thank you as well for having the conversations because that allows this type of dialogue to happen so people can listen in and go, oh, hold on, maybe that applies to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, and the thing that I'll add, because I agree with all the stuff that you said, is pay attention to your body. Notice what you notice. And then start checking in. You don't have to do anything with it. Just start noticing it. And the clues are there. So if you're not feeling energized and motivated and all the stuff, and you're the opposite of that, right? To where drugged down, weighted down, whatever it is, those are indicators for you. Life
100%.
does not have to be that way. It's not all, rainbows, sunshines, and unicorns, but it's not, I'm going to be eaten alive tomorrow either. And so just start noticing what you notice.
Fantastic. Thank you
Thank you,
very
sir.
much, Michelle.
Thank you. Until next time, this is Leadership Soundbites with Jonathan and Michelle. Have an awesome, awesome day. Thank you.